Hi, I'm Katie McCarskey, and I'm here with Principal Roth to discuss the important announcement that will impact our fall sports who lost the opportunity to play because of the pandemic. How are you, Principal Roth? Thanks for being here.
I'm pretty good, Katie. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, what exactly is the plan for fall sports?
We are working under PIAA guidance, as we always do with sports. And the PIAA recognizes that there are many of us, especially in the Philadelphia area, who are not playing fall sports currently. And so they approved for us to play an alternate season. So essentially, what they are allowing for and what we are working towards is playing fall sports in between the traditional winter and spring sports. So at the end of swimming, bowling, basketball, wrestling, and before we get into baseball, softball, track and field, and lacrosse.
Cool. So, will the teams only have the chance to play within the listed schools?
So as of right now, the schools that are in that announcement, that 9 of us, we are actively working together to make sure that we can put together, as full of a season as we can. There are not a ton of other schools that are not playing, especially if we are thinking about limiting travel. We don't want to travel a couple of hours to play games. So I'm pretty confident right now that for the most part, our games will be with the schools that you see on that announcement.
Awesome. So, how did this plan get developed?
So it's been a long, winding road, right? And I want everyone to know that this is by no means, a finished product. We're doing all of this planning in the hopes that the situation with COVID continues to improve. The numbers have gotten so much better in Norristown, and we're really glad. But we know that there's also a significant number of cases. So we need those numbers to keep improving. We have to continue to work on our athletic health and safety plan, which is something that we have to get approved by the school board. So that way everyone knows that when we do return to action, that we're doing it in a safe and consistent manner. And as long as we can get those things done, then really, how this came together was, a joint effort by a lot of athletic directors, to be honest. And Mr. Palladino, as soon as this opportunity came about, really reaching out, he has a lot of contacts throughout the region, reaching out and saying, hey, who's interested? And together, him and I, have worked on this with a number of other great colleagues from other schools.
Who had to approve the plan?
So in order to, release that statement, obviously, we work with our entire district to make sure that everyone is comfortable with us putting this out. Because again, this is not a finished product, right? I'd love to sit here with you today and say that I know for sure on March 8th, 2021, we're going to play Academy Park in football. That is what we're planning for. I don't actually know about opponent and date, right? I'm just making that up. But that is what we're planning for, and we feel pretty confident that we can make that happen, just like we feel pretty confident that we can make winter sports happen and spring sports happen. But ultimately, everything that we do in the school district is governed, by our superintendent and our school board, and they have been really, really good partners in all this. I have to give them credit. I think that they have been a good voice of reason, making sure that we are being safe. Sometimes I think we really want to make sure that we get ourselves back on the field, and they've been working with us to make sure that we can do that, and also working with us to make sure that we can do it in a safe manner. So a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, and making sure that our plans really do make sure that if and when we return, we do it in the safest way possible, because we don't want to start and get shut down.
What will the spring season look like as far as sports that are going to be offered?
So when you say the spring season, because this is all confusing now, are you talking about the regular spring season, like baseball, softball, or are you talking about the fall spring season?
Both.
Okay. All right. So maybe let's go through the whole athletic calendar now. what we are looking at now is starting our year with winter sports. So, competitive cheer, basketball, wrestling, swimming, and bowling. Those seasons start, practices start in the middle of November. I'll be honest and say that I am not sure that we will start right away in the beginning of November. And PIAA has also made allowances for schools like ours to be able to push back that start date and still be eligible for district and state playoffs. So the winter season is where we're hoping to start. Starting date to be announced, obviously, once we get through the approval process and making sure that everyone is comfortable with what we are doing. And it really is all contingent upon us still being on track to come back to school, right? Because we're in school, so we can't play sports if we're not going to be in school. The fall season then would begin, really at the very tail end of the winter season. So the only overlap there would be, with teams that are really far down the road towards, competing for a state title, and would also start right before the regular spring season begins. So we're probably talking about 6 weeks of competition for field hockey, football, all of our, soccer teams, all of our fall sports. And then those 6 weeks will end really right at the beginning of spring sports. So there is a chance that if this all goes according to plan, that then spring sports might get delayed by, a couple of weeks. However, we do have the option to reschedule some of those games for later in the year than we normally would. So, and we are very conscious going through this that, our spring athletes lost their seasons last year. So we want to make sure that they get their seasons this year.
Awesome. Are any of the participating teams already playing a fall season?
So none of them are. All the schools that we are working with are in the exact same spot that we are. Many of them have not been, in the gym or on the field, since March.
How will you facilitate 2 sport seasons at the same time?
Oh, it's going to be a lot of work, right? And not just a lot of work on the adults end. This is hard for students, but I think it's something that student athletes are used to. I remember being a basketball coach, and we would always have guys that the day after the Thanksgiving game for football, then we would get some more guys back onto the basketball team. And that happens in all kinds of sports. So I know we're going to be doing a lot of work, certainly with Mr. Flynn, to make sure that our athletes are healthy as they make that transition. You use different muscles going from, basketball to soccer. And the last thing that we want is for a student to be injured. So we're going to make sure that we take that into account. Obviously, make sure that we're supporting students academically as well. Going from no sports for 10 months to then playing 3 sports in a matter of 5 months is going to be interesting. But I also think that, if we can make this happen, and again, it's all contingent upon it being a healthy environment, that this will do a lot of good for, the mental health of our students who really, are dying to get back out there and play.
So, as far as having 2 sports seasons going on at the same time, are teams going to be allowed to practice at the high school all at the same time, or will there be different locations that they will be able to practice at?
So we're definitely going to work to limit that overlap as much as we possibly can. And that's where the flexible scheduling that PIAA is allowing us to have really comes into play. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a principal. I've never been an athletic director. So Mr. Palladino, I'm sure, will do a lot of work with our league partners and our non-league partners to, finagle some schedules and reschedule some games. I would rather see, instead of there being a softball game that happens March 15th, which, let's face it, it's always really cold for softball and baseball at that time of the year. But instead of having a game played where, 5 of the kids are still playing soccer, I'd rather push that game back if we can, to let, people focus on one sport at a time. You can't practice for 2 sports at the same time. It's impossible. And we don't just want our student athletes to be healthy, but we also want them to be able to compete. And if you go from corner kicks to trying to slap bunt all in the same day, you've got to be a better athlete than I am to get that done.
And what about locker rooms and storing and sharing equipment?
So going back to the beginning of the summer, that's a lot of the work that we've been doing with this health and safety plan that, again, we're going to bring back to, to the school board, and to Superintendent Dormer, Dr. Williams, our assistant superintendent, making sure that we really have a plan in place that leaves no room for error. Nothing is guaranteed, right? If there's one thing 2020 has taught us, it's that. But I think that plan does include a lot of those things. Some things, I'll be honest, are just going to look different. Being able to go into the locker room as a team is probably something that's going to have to wait for 2021, 2022. There are some things with equipment that we're going to have to take into account, sanitizing the volleyball in between every set. That's something that, I don't know about you, but I'm not used to, but we have to do it because we want people to be safe. And that document, it's an extensive document. And again, that's why, the school board is such a great resource for us because, they, by law, PIAA and the Pennsylvania Department of Education has said they have to approve that plan. And if there's one thing I've learned in 3 years here, it's that, they're going to be great partners and coaches for us as they analyze that plan. And that, quite frankly, they, just like us, are not going to sign their name to something if they don't think it's going to keep you safe.
For the students who have participated in 3 sports for the past 2 or 3 years, will they be able to still participate in all 3 sports?
Absolutely. It's going to look different. There won't be as much downtime in between, but I think that's something that's really important. We athletically live in this age where people are so quick to go to 9-year-olds and say, oh, if you want to be a really good softball player, you better forget everything else. But then I always remind people, and I always reminded people when I coached that, when you turn on the TV and you watch, whether it's the Olympics or a college basketball game or the NFL, so much of the conversation around those athletes is not just that they are an Olympic volleyball player, but that they scored 1,000 points in their high school's basketball team and that they did, 3 other sports. So limiting yourself is really not good. It's not good for your body either. Some of your muscles need a break. So we want people to play 3 sports if that's what you want to do. I think it's important. And I think that this schedule, if it all comes to plan, will allow you to do that.
Awesome. If you have reached out to the surrounding districts that are continuing their fall sports, what have worked for them and what hasn't?
So I think it all really starts with every community situation with the pandemic has been different. We have great partners in the Pioneer Athletic Conference. The PAC, I'll be honest, they've been amazingly supportive. There was a time where half of them were in the same position that we were. Obviously, in the league, we're kind of on an island now, but that also, I think, comes down to, unfortunately, the coronavirus has hit in our town really, really hard. The numbers don't lie there. And so I think we had to be a little more cautious than maybe some other people. Our district is a little more compact in terms of, all of us being close together, whereas some of the other schools that are in our league and are in District 1 are a little more spread out. So I think our circumstance was just a little bit different. I think that's, what has been encouraging to see is that school by school, everyone has been trying to do what's best for them and then also supporting each other. There was a time, I'll be honest, where I was a little afraid of, what's our standing within the league look like if we're not playing, and every principal, every athletic director, they've been more than supportive, and they want to do whatever they can to help us out.
Has the athletic board decided on fans for any sports?
Oh, that has been such a hot topic in Pennsylvania. Governor Wolf issued a mandate a while ago that then was taken to court, and just like I feel like everything else these days, it has been overturned and reinstated and overturned. And Governor Wolf has since changed his guidance, but ultimately, it really comes down to a local decision. Again, some things that make sense in certain places don't make sense in others. And while yes, I really can't wait to be back, in that stadium or in the gym or in the pool. Well, not actually in the pool, but you know what I mean. With a lot of fans, in blue and white and screaming and yelling. I also know that the most important priority right now for us is just to get the athletes out there. We're going to continue to talk about what the spectator situation looks like. But I think, we're going to continue to err on the side of caution because, again, if I have to choose between us getting shut down early or people, watching from home, I'd rather them watch from home. And one other really cool thing that we have invested in, we have these cameras, one in the gym and then one that has been installed in the stadium that allow for our games to be live streamed in HD quality. It's an amazing system and it's free. And so as we get into competition, we'll make sure that we put that out. Now, I know it leaves some sports out. I definitely understand that. I'm a baseball guy and we don't have a camera on the baseball field, but we'll do everything possible to make sure that people can watch their kids and their loved ones and their friends at home.
How will the athletes be required to protect themselves from the pandemic?
So let's start with, I think that begins now, right? We only get back on the field, on the court, on the track, in the pool if we're smart. So keep wearing the mask, keep social distancing, keep doing what we're doing because we got to keep those numbers going in the right direction. When it becomes time, again, we're going to follow our health and safety plan. It's going to involve, temperature screenings and, making sure that people, are filling out questionnaires and letting us know if they have symptoms or if loved ones have symptoms. It's also going to mean, being smart, right? Coaches are going to have to ask you to do a lot of things they've never asked you to do before. Everything from what you do when you arrive at practice to how we handle the locker room to, before you go shoot your free throws, take a wipe down the ball. And the second that we get lax and don't do any of those things is the second that we probably go back to wishing we were still playing sports. So there's going to be a lot of rules. We're going to have to do a lot of training to make sure that we comply. And again, that's why that health and safety plan is so important that we, look forward to working with upper administration and the school board with.
How will you be certain that this won't cause a spike in cases?
That's the fear, right? And that's why I think we have been so cautious. I love sports. I really do. Such a big part of, I think why I have become the person that I have today, not because I was a great athlete, trust me, I wasn't. But, it taught me about teamwork and it taught me confidence and, forced me to try some things that I wouldn't have otherwise done. But I also know that I wouldn't have wanted to do that if it risked my parents' health. If it risked, the health of, my case, my kids and my wife. But, I know that we can say, well, if a teenager gets sick, okay, teenagers, are probably okay. But at the same time, every teenager has parents and grandparents and neighbors that they love. So I think we're going to have to be extra careful. And I think that, our superintendent and our board, they're going to continue to monitor the numbers that we get from the county. And the second that we do see those numbers go up, we're going to have decisions to make that, quite frankly, might not be popular, but in the long run, I'd rather have people be upset with me than get sick.
How would you handle a COVID case within one of the teams?
So again, this is all something that is going to be addressed in that health and safety plan. But it all begins for us with not leaving your house to come to practice or a game or school for that matter. If you're feeling ill, if you're sick, stay home. We're going to make sure that nobody has temperature coming in. We're going to make sure that nobody has symptoms coming in. And if someone fails that screening, then, we're going to isolate them. We've got a couple of places highlighted in that plan to isolate you. So that way someone can come and pick you up. We would then immediately start making phone calls, to obviously to our, our superintendent, our school board. They would be in contact with the county. And then one of the things that I think we've been really good with in Norristown is following the guidance of our health professionals. So they would conduct contact tracing and they would provide us guidance with what we should do.
Why is it so important to make this fall season possible?
I think, you only get one chance at high school. It's always the hardest thing when we try to improve things for the school, right? I have a lot of years before I'm going to retire. So maybe in the course of my career, people missing out on one sports season or, anything for a year, right? Because it's not just sports, right? And we know that that's part of the equation too. We're missing concerts, we're missing musicals, we're missing, all kinds of things. And we're going to keep trying to find ways to bring them back when it's safe. But we know that if you're a student, you've got one chance at this. If you're a junior and you're a soccer player, this is such a vital year for you to be seen and to be scouted. It's important, to be a well-rounded student, and that's something that we tell kids all the time. And so we want to make sure that we can get back to that as long as it's safe.
And before sports can even start, how are tryouts and signups going to work?
It's going to be interesting, right? So we've got a lot to do. When we are officially approved, we have to, hold virtual meetings to get people in the know. We've got to train people on safety protocols. We've got to get people signed up. We've got to do physicals. And then, we've got workouts and tryouts that we have to do. So a lot of those details are really going to, still be ironed out. This is happening very quickly, I'll be honest. My head is spinning from all the stuff that's gone on in the last week, but those are the details that we can nail down. And again, those are all the behind the scenes details that, I think our athletic professionals take care of that we don't always see.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think just, I thank everyone for your patience. And I know that this has been really tough. There are no right answers here, right? There's nothing that we can do that's going to make everyone happy. And I just want to make sure everyone knows, we're going to continue to err on the side of caution. I think we're getting to a point where we can, start to return to a little bit of normalcy here, but not too much, right? We've got to be careful. And again, I think that we've made the right decision in the past. I wish that I was going to, watch games this afternoon and tonight, but I'm also glad that I'm not, because I know that everyone's healthy. So just keep doing what you're doing, put your mask on, socially distance, and and I really appreciate this community-wide effort to keep this conversation going, and to understand that sometimes, leaders, we have to make decisions that maybe aren't popular. If I was a 16-year-old baseball player, it probably wouldn't matter what you told me. But I think that's why sometimes, some of us, whether it be a principal, a superintendent, working together with our school board, we've got to make decisions that are right, even if they're not popular. So just thank you for your understanding and your patience. And when the time comes, go Eagles.
Thanks again.